Thank you for tuning into The Back Page. It's April 2nd. This will be our 19th episode of The Back Page. I'm your host, Collin Crisp.
And I'm Carter Sims, and today we finally have our Final Four set in our men's NCAA tournament, so we'll be recapping this latest weekend's action and looking forward to the final weekend of college hoops here. So, Colin, what region do we want to kind of start off with?
Well, the one everybody had their eye on going into it was the East, and it ended up being maybe perhaps a little more predictable than everybody expected. What were your thoughts looking back on how the East played out?
I mean, I feel like I remember people saying UConn got kind of screwed over in their original draw because they were the number one overall seed, and then people were saying they had the toughest region. But if you looked at any of their results, I don't think that you would believe that. I mean, like, just looking through the teams they played, Stetson, Northwestern, San Diego State, and Illinois. I'm pretty sure they won each game by at least 20. And they've been beating a team by at least 30 at one point or another, all of those games. And I think I saw a stat they've only trailed for a combined 28 seconds in the entire tournament. So, like, it's interesting to me with UConn. Let me actually move the mic by my face. It's interesting to me with UConn because they have a very strong likelihood of going back-to-back, and somehow they're not hated by, like, the general college basketball population yet, which is just, like, kind of interesting to see because I feel like whenever we see any type of, like, consistency or repeated success, it becomes like there's almost a hatred for that program, regardless of really any history or interaction that people in their favorite programs would have with it, right? Like we saw it with Virginia even when they were, obviously they lost in the first round, and then next year were national champions and had a really strong run, like regular season and that one tournament. Like I remember during the RJ and Zion and Cam Reddish Duke year, like Virginia was like giving Duke like legitimate tests like throughout that season, and people like grew to hate Virginia. And now it's like funny to clown on them about their tournament struggles now and their lack of offense and their inability to really like get out of the first weekend and stuff. And I feel like a lot of people is different this time because everyone likes UConn to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Like maybe if you're a fan of a Big East school that has a real rivalry with them, like I mean, gosh, I don't even really know like who in the Big East is tied with who, but like I guess maybe you're a UConn hater, but I feel like the general population like enjoys UConn.
Yeah, I can see that, especially coming down to the Final Four here, where like if not for a really wild upset in the South, our final because NC State, we'll get to that in a minute, but we would have Alabama, Purdue, and Duke plus UConn. And I feel like if we would end up getting that Final Four, UConn would have been, without a shadow of a doubt, the country's rooting interest. But something I wanted to ask you in regards to what you're talking about teams that garner success usually also garnering a like villain role. I feel like that happens a lot in professional sports because there's such an even playing field. There's not exactly like haves and have-nots. It's just, do you have it yet? So people hated the Patriots dynasty because everyone was like, my team is capable of that. Why can't I have that? And then that envy turns into like an anger. In college basketball, you don't exactly have that because there will never be a Stetson that can be where UConn's at right now. Do you think that hatred can still build the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at a Duke, you look at a Kansas, you look at a UNC, you look at a UCLA, you look at a Kentucky, like, those blue bloods, for as many people as there are that enjoy watching them and have strong emotional connections to them, there's people that, like, outright hate them. Like, I'll be honest, I can't stand Kansas basketball myself. Like, and other programs I'm, like, indifferent on. Like, I don't really have a, dislike or like for Kentucky. I enjoy watching their players when they're in the NBA. Unfortunately, can't watch them past the first weekend of the tournament these days. But like I enjoy Kentucky, and I don't really have a side in the UNC Duke divide. Like I've liked Duke at times. I've liked watching UNC at times. Like it really just kind of depends on I think, I guess, like, the way that things play out for each program, right? Like, Duke has been hated at times because of players that have been controversial, like a Christian Laettner, like a J.J. Redick, like even to a smaller degree this year, Kyle Filipowski, right? Like, there's people that someone at Duke just rubs them the wrong way, and they don't like the identity of that university and kind of the image of, like, being this, like, uptight, preppy, rich school that is really good at basketball every year and power to the whole ACC. And then there's people who don't like Kentucky, and they're kind of, like, sense of this, like, blood right to being SEC champions and getting the top recruit every year and then flipping them for a one and done and then just doing the same thing next year. Like, for whatever reason, people grow to hate those programs that have sustained success. But me and you were kind of talking about this just, like, on the weekend over text. Like, I think UConn's on the fringe of something right now where, like, Coach Hurley is a really, in the scale of college basketball, a really young coach.
Yeah.
I forget his exact age. I don't think it's past, like, much past 50. He might be 51, 52.
Dan Hurley, or what's his first name?
Yeah, Dan Hurley.
All right, cool. Let's see. He is. I'll find his age real quick. Damn.
Right here.
Oh, 51. Okay,
Yeah,
51.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, he looks older because he's bald and has glasses, but, like, Nate Oates at Alabama's 49, to put that in perspective. Like, it's really not. He's not an older or even, like, middle-aged college basketball coach at all. Like, he's very young in his coaching time. And so, like, you think about that, and then you think about their ability to have success this year after losing their three best players all to the NBA last year, right? Like, when you watch UConn basketball last year, you're going to remember watching Sonogo and Jordan Hawkins and guys like that. And I want to say Andre Jackson, right? He was on the Huskies as well. Like, they're all in the NBA. And, like, I feel like this team might be a little better than last year's team, which is kind of weird to think about. So, like, you think about their ability to recruit, their ability to use the transfer portal, the stature of that program, which they always talk about them being a new blood because they've had these, like, moments of, you know, they won in 14, they won in 2004, and stuff like that. Like, I think they've won, gosh, this would be their sixth title in 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, we're, like, kind of on the cusp of, like, a modern day, like, I don't want to say UCLA, but, like, this, like, kind of era of dominance for UConn is starting to look more and more, like, solidified.
Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting that, like, I personally like them. I think they're really likable, and I usually hate big programs. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like Michigan. I don't like Kansas. I don't like, you know, schools like that just have just seem year in, year out, just seem to be able to just, like, turn out success. But, like, they're just really likable.
I think a big part of that is, I'd say about 50%. I'd say it's a coin flip. Going into this season, I'd say about half the population thought that this was possible. Where a lot of people thought, I mean, even really early on in the year, when UConn got their first rated number 1 in the AP poll of the year, I remember very distinctly reading an ESPN article that was titled, and I quote, UConn to the field. And I was like, that's outrageous. There's never been a point where I would bet one team against the field in March Madness. And then the closer as we got to the tournament, the more I was like, I don't know, I might.
Yeah.
Like, this UConn team's so good.
I think everyone had that moment of pause when they lost to Creighton. And then we woke up and were like,
that's their only loss this year.
Exactly. Like, is that their first road loss in, like, what, how long? Like, I want to say, like, 2 years, like 2 or 3 years they haven't lost on the road.
Did they not have I thought they had 2 this year, but I could be wrong.
Did they beat?
I'll look it up. But, yeah, make your point when I find it.
There was something about ranked loss or loss on the road or something like that. But, yeah, like, as we've gotten closer, I picked UConn in my original bracket. I forget, did we pick them for
We did in the Towson
bracket? So, like, and I just kind of thought, like, I didn't necessarily go into the year thinking, all right, UConn back-to-back champs. But as soon as I started filling out my bracket, I was like, they'll beat them, they'll beat them, they'll beat them, they'll beat them, they'll beat them. Like, it really just kind of, like, worked out.
That was
that.
They lost at Kansas early in the year, and then they lost at Creighton.
That's right. Okay. So
Oh, and at Seton Hall at one point.
I forget what stat that was, but something like that.
Yeah.
And no, it's just like baffling to me how they seem to get better and better the better teams that they play.
Yeah. And so this team is so diverse in how they can win a game. And the reason I mention this is I find it baffling how I don't think their 3-point percentage over the last 2 games is above 20. Like, it's been horrible. Against Illinois, they were like 3 for 21 or something outrageous, and it was even worse the game before, and they're still going on 30-0 runs and blowing out teams by like 20 plus, and they're not even shooting well. Like, they're playing Bama, and Bama, the whole reason they've been winning games is because they've been shooting well, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But if UConn goes into that and they shoot well, like, imagine how much they would beat Illinois by if they wouldn't have, I don't know, went 3 for 21 from the 3-point line. Like, that, it's so jarring how this team's not even playing to their peak potential and they still look like miles ahead of the rest of the field.
I mean, that Illinois game, 30-0 run?
Yeah.
I mean, I came down to watch the game. There's probably a little bit left in the first half. I fell asleep. I woke up like a few minutes into the second half. And Illinois still hadn't scored. It was like, I think that Illinois didn't score for like 50 minutes of real life time on that. It was insane. And I've never seen, like, it was tight going into the halftime, right? Like 23-23. And then UConn just stole their soul in that second half. And it was just like, kind of like mesmerizing to watch. Like, it's not often you see a college basketball team just go into halftime and then come out and just like, it was like everything was working for them. Like, and it didn't matter who was making what cut or what pass or what switch on the defensive side. Like, it just worked. Like, it was crazy how versatile they are in like guarding different pick and roll actions and being able to get to their shots without necessarily like, having to do too much one-on-one stuff. Like, it was really just mesmerizing to watch.
Yeah, like most of the time people thought blowouts boring, which I don't like. If the two teams are skilled, I don't see that. If it's like Bama versus Chattanooga in football, like, I get that. But if it's the top 5, top 10 matchup, then like I think a blowout's really impressive to watch.
Yeah.
That was one of the most impressive blowouts, if you will, in a half I've ever seen.
And it was just like, how do you not get to the line? Like, how do you not like drive and draw a foul and hit one of two and at least score 8 points in the strike?
Yeah.
It was just insane to watch. And so, yeah, like, we'll talk about Bama in a second here because they play them. But, yeah, I mean, looking at this region, like, I thought Iowa State looked good. We were kind of differential on them.
Mm-hmm.
BYU, the greatest March Madness run to never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, looking at these teams now, like, I feel dumb for thinking that, like, it was really going to be that tight because, like, SDSU, that's a Final Four rematch from last year. Florida Atlantic's been one of the best mid-majors, like, for the last 2 years. And they played them second round. They didn't even make it to the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just, I don't know. We talked about it kind of being like the Maui, essentially, again, in that East region, and UConn just treated it like a vacation.
Yeah. I can't end the East talk without giving Yale a shout-out. I had a lot of confidence in that Auburn team. I thought Auburn was one of the best not top 2 seeds in the whole tournament, if not the best, really. And Yale, dude, what a comeback at the very end. Last 2 minutes, came back and snuck one out. Used that good play calling, nice intelligence out of the Yale Ivy League.
Some of the memes were funny. It was like a bunch of dudes in like sweaters and stuff going like, it's because Yale. It's like, this is how they're turning up at Yale. There was another, I forget what the like department was, but it was like Yale MB and B or something like that. Like, that was an abbreviation. But people kept tagging them on Twitter as the Yale men's basketball team, and that's what they're not. And they were like, guys, this is not the Twitter handle for the men's basketball team. This is the blah, blah, blah department or something like that.
That's incredible.
That was funny. But, yeah, so then UConn going to this Final Four game. They'll play Bama out of the West region. First of all, we expand the playoffs to 12 teams. We expand the playoffs to 14 teams, and we still get Bama Clemson in the postseason. I saw this, and I felt like I was, like, back in middle school getting ready to watch a national championship game. Like, It was kind of funny how they met up again. But yeah, like, what do we think of this West region overall? Because I thought this was going to be wide open. And I mean, I guess Bama, like, a lot of people liked Arizona. I had Dayton in the Final Four. We're not going to talk about that, but I mean, obviously UNC's been hot all year, and some people were riding Michigan State too. Like, there was a lot of teams that I could see coming out of this one.
Well, for me, I thought this one was wide open just because I thought it had the weakest 1 seed. It had the most inconsistent 2 seed. I had no idea how to feel about Baylor. Bama is all shooting, and so like if they had a bad day, that could collapse. St. Mary's doesn't have an offense, that could fall apart any moment. And Clemson is the only surefire of the top 6 teams, and they're playing by far the best 11 seed.
Yeah.
So like, it was a case of all of the double-digit seeded teams were like underdogs. If everyone was like, oh, this is a team that could pull off an upset, and then all of the low seeded teams, the single digit teams, they were like the least surefire of their seed. So it could have been anybody, and it was going to take a team getting hot, as it usually does, but B, especially when you're playing a whole bunch of inconsistent teams. Arizona's inconsistent. North Carolina was inconsistent on the stretch. Bama's all shooting. St. Mary's offense is inconsistent.
Yeah.
And Bama was the team that consistently was able to shoot their way to wins.
Yeah. And I mean, I liked going into that North Carolina-Bama game. I was looking at that, and like within like 9 seconds, I just felt like that was going to be a flamethrower. And I thought North Carolina was going to come out on top of the night. Alabama surprised me, and then like Clemson, I don't want to call them fraudulent, but like they had a lot of really like kind of off matchups going up to this. Like they played an Arizona team going into the Alabama game that like people have kind of been waiting for Arizona to like slip up all tournament and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like hats off to Clemson because like they made this a game and were just as competitive and stuff. And so like it really just makes you think like we don't know anything. Like when we're doing these brackets and stuff, like no one had Alabama Clemson. Like no one had that. And so like it was just like an interesting thing to watch. Like first of all, one of the best games in the tournament with personally my favorite college basketball game of the year with Alabama and North Carolina in this one. And then like people were talking about Long Beach State and their coach who was already fired going into this one. You had New Mexico State who I thought was kind of a sleeping giant a little bit, could make an upset run. Like I feel like every single higher seeded team was like a popular upset pick in this one. And so, yeah, it was just a really interesting bracket to watch play out. Bama, like, surprised me. I think it was the Clemson game. Yeah, down the stretch of that Clemson game, because they almost blew it. Like, and there was a moment, they called a timeout, and the players are yelling at each other, and the coach is yelling at the players and stuff, and it's like, is this where they, like, lose composure and blow this lead and give up a 3-1 or something like that? But no, they held it together, and a lot of good guard play, and like guys like Pringle down the stretch really impressed me too, even though he got subbed out late in the game. I was kind of surprised by that, but yeah, like it's interesting to think like they're this good, and Brandon Miller was on their team last year. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of how. In the same way with Houston, I was kind of talking about that because like Marcus Sasser was on that team 24 months ago, so like it was just insane to think about. But yeah.
Well, I mean, also Mark Sears wasn't the dog he is now. But looking at the bracket besides Bama for just a moment before we move on to the next one, Grand Canyon beating St. Mary's as the last game of that round one 2-day stretch was pretty hilarious. I didn't expect that at all. I had St. Mary's going really far in my bracket. My personal one, because I thought St. Mary's, I didn't think Bama was going to be able to shoot their way out of literally everything like they did. And considering that, I thought they'd pull that off. I was like, I need a 1 seed to lose. And I think North Carolina's the most likely. So I had St. Mary's beating them. And then I had them going really far. And then they proceeded to get beaten by Grand Canyon. I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. And then Dayton didn't make it extremely far, but shout out to that comeback. I was at my boss's house watching that game as we were discussing like contract stuff because I'm the cameraman outside of this, and we were talking about different like games we were going to film and whatnot. And we're eating, and we left the living room because Nevada's just boat racing Dayton. We walked back in. Dayton's winning.
Yeah, I was so when Dayton played Nevada, I was going home from basketball practice, and I watched the first half of school before I got in the car, and then I got home and sat down, and I was like, no way I waited 7 years for this team to be back in the tournament, and this is how we're going to go out first round, get completely shellacked by Nevada. But no, I battled back, and then the Arizona game, I was with our basketball team, State Final Four, in a conference room in a hotel. We're eating team lunch, and I'm watching that game, like locked in on that game, and everyone's dogging me, like, that we're down and stuff. I'm like, we're gonna make a run, we're gonna make a run, and we did, and it just wasn't enough. Like, couldn't outshoot Arizona, and Arizona's a good team. They talked about consistency stuff, but they're a good team. And so yeah, it was like kind of surprising, like the almost like recharge the Dayton seemed to have in both of their games this year. But yeah, up to South region. Can I it is my dream in this tournament. We'll talk about our prediction in front of tournament. For UConn to play NC State in the men's and women's tournament. Like, that is my desired outcome in all of this. Because I checked, I'm pretty sure UConn and NC State are on opposite sides of the bracket in the women's tournament too, and both their programs are alive. And I just want I forget what night the women's final is on.
I will figure this information out for you.
Might be the night before the men's final. I'm not sure, but that would be awesome if the same two schools played each other in both tournaments. Not to mention, UConn has won the men's and women's tournament in 2014 and 2004. So, according to schedule,
wait,
I'm pretty sure I saw a stat like that.
I thought the last team that won. Oh wait, no. I'm thinking of football and basketball, not both genders.
Just their women's team, their men's team.
Yeah.
They won both of them won national titles in 2014, and same thing in 2004. So according to the schedule, the year ends in 4, so they might be due. But this NC State team, if you would have picked any of the North Carolina teams to be in the Final Four, this would probably be your last pick going into this tournament. But probably the hottest team in college basketball, right? Other than UConn, obviously. Hottest team in college basketball. You look at what they've been able to do from the end of the regular season going into the ACC tournament and now this. They just find ways to win. And it's kind of frustrating to watch because you're like, why couldn't my team do this? NC State is America's team in this Final Four, I feel like. This is the other one for us. Alabama, yeah, obviously not in basketball. It's their first program Final Four, but they've been there sports-wise. UConn won it last year. Purdue, been a highly touted team for 3 years. NC State came out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah. I swear it's one day they just woke up and decided, we're just going to, win now. And we're going to play good. Because I can't even put my finger on what about that team's better besides the entire team.
NC State this year has been Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. It's really and you look at this region was disgusting. With Houston, Duke, James Madison looked kind of poised to make a run going into this. A lot of people were high on Colorado coming out of the first four, right? Colorado's first four.
Yeah.
And then, Marquette, we were kind of seeing they might be due for a deep tournament run. I still think that's coming from Marquette, but a lot of tough teams in this region. And so, NC State made a really impressive run.
Also, to respond to your thing, I believe women's championship comes the day before the men's.
Okay.
And I think if you're wanting both to be NC State, UConn, your biggest challenge is that NC State in both men's and women's is double-digit underdog. So it would take a couple upsets by NC State, but it'd be interesting. It'd be really fun. We can't go through the South without laughing at Kentucky.
Kentucky, it's just, I was talking about their ability to produce first-round talent and not get past the first round, but, you look at their guy, you could literally build a playoff contending team a championship contending team just off of Kentucky alums in the NBA right now. Like, there's probably more that I'm about to forget. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, and fine, I'll play Jamal Murray at the 3. I'm loving that.
Where did Embiid go?
He did it. He went to Kansas.
Oh, okay, wrong blue blood.
There's someone major I'm forgetting right now. I'm ticked.
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey too. You have tons of dudes, top end talent, and then year after year just not able to turn into tournament success. When was the last time they made? Was that 2015 that they really made? Is that when they won? They went to the Final Four and lost to Duke, I believe.
Let's see.
Or no, lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four.
I think you're right on that, but I'll check you.
Oh my God. Did I forget Anthony Davis in my Kentucky count?
Yes.
I did.
That's the center I was trying to think of.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's honestly ridiculous looking at the talent they've produced. But yeah, I mean, Cal has talked about it. His goal isn't necessarily, I mean, obviously they want to win championships, but his priority is getting these guys in the NBA, getting them massive contracts. And he said that. And so, that's fine. But how long how long does that last? Because there's plenty of programs that get guys good NBA contracts. I mean, Alabama's done that.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't you don't get commission in your next contract negotiation. It was I did get Tyrese Maxey that giant signing bonus. Yeah, we haven't been in the Final Four in a decade. I'm wondering when that point's going to come for Kentucky.
Yeah, 2015 was the last time they made it. They made it to the Final Four and lost Wisconsin, like you said.
It's a big Frank Kaminsky.
Yeah, from 2011 to 2015, they made 4 Final Fours and 2 national championship games.
Yeah,
and then since they've done literally nothing.
You think I think about Kentucky, I think of just massive names like Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, Karl Anthony Towns, and they're it's been a while since those guys were in college. I kind of looked up and Kentucky, I don't want to say fell off because they're still a really good program. They're still a really good team every year. I mean, they got guys like Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham are going to be great NBA players eventually. And so it's not that they don't have good players and not good teams anymore. It's just they don't make it in the tournament for whatever reason.
Yeah, so I want to make a comparison, but I want to ask you about it first. Would you say in college football Clemson's fell off since they won their titles?
I'd say that, I guess. I mean, they're not at the stage they once were, so fell off or regressed, I guess. But
I think that's a good Kentucky comparison because they went from consistently making it in the Final Four, consistently being a national championship contender to they still have great years. They still compete for SEC championships. They still make high seeds in the tournament, but they're not where they were. Right, and that's where Clemson's been for a while.
Kentucky, for me, soccer comparison, they're the Borussia Dortmund of college basketball for me. So Borussia Dortmund is this club in Germany, and Germany's they won't this year because they're having an off year. I think FC Bayern Munich is the team in Germany. They've won. I know they're the team, but I think they've won 10 straight league championships in Germany, and Dortmund's always second fiddle to them. But they produce some of the best talent in the world. So Jude Bellingham, who's the best player in Real Madrid, was formerly playing at Borussia Dortmund. Same with Erling Haaland, who's just set the Premier League all-time goal record last year in his first year with Manchester City. That's how I feel about Kentucky. They produce great talent, but they don't compete with it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's whatever. But focusing on NC State, their best player. They invaded here now.
DJ Burns. Yeah.
So, I just thought Nikola Jokic was talking about his game. That was wild. I to get praise from Nikola Jokic right now, who
best player in the NBA.
Well, his name isn't Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, so I'm not gonna.
I don't agree with that, but yeah.
Shai's my MVP pick. That's next week's discussion, but
fair.
To get praise from the best, we'll say big in the world for sure. That was surprising to me because I know Nikola Jokic does not watch any basketball when he doesn't have to. Like that dude is racing horses, he's gambling, he's swimming, he's on gondolas and stuff. That dude does not care about basketball. He checks into his 9 to 5, drops 30 and 12, and does some ridiculous play defense for 23.9 seconds, and he chucks it up and hits a game winner and goes home. Like that's it. So to get praise from him, he really must have been getting his attention for him to even watch it, and secondly talk about it publicly. Mm-hmm. But no, their whole thing is why not us, and I love it because you look at the programs they just beat with Duke, Duke just came off a win against Houston. I'm like, yeah, no way Duke is about to go down. This is another year, just like with the Paulo year, where Duke didn't look good coming out of the regular season, had some rough shooting in the tournament, and then we get to the second weekend and they just catch fire. That's exactly what happened in the Paulo year. I'm like, here we go again. And no, NC State, and it wasn't particularly questionable down the stretch too. They pulled that thing out. And so yeah, we're gonna get to Purdue in a minute. But I wish UConn was playing Purdue and Alabama was playing NC State because I feel like there'd be such better matchups. But
I agree with that.
Yeah, tons of credit to NC State. I personally am rooting for them to beat Purdue.
Oh, me too.
And so, I do like UConn, but if NC State gets to the championship, all bets are off. You know what I mean? Once you get there, you enter a different realm as an underdog team where there's no odds, there's nothing anymore. It's just whatever happens. So I'm kind of hoping they can get to that stage. Getting to the team that they'll play now, Purdue. It was.
The Midwest was by far the most boring bracket this year.
I wouldn't say that. I mean,
really?
Tennessee was great to watch. Dalton Knecht is a great player.
Oh, yeah.
He had a great game against Purdue. That'll be overshadowed, obviously, and I mean for good reason, but no fault of his own. The Oregon Creighton game was a fantastic game.
That's true.
I really thought Kansas and Gonzaga were about to go down. Neither one of those things happened. And then, I don't know. There was just a lot up in the air with this region, and I kind of liked it because it was it as chalk as it was with the regional final with this one with Purdue and Tennessee playing. It's 1-2. It was a good road to get there.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree with that. I think that the stars is what made the Midwest worth watching between Creighton and them having their stars out until Tennessee beat them with Dalton Knecht. Dalton Knecht putting up 30 a game, and we're about to talk about Zach Edey most likely, but the stars is what made the Midwest this year. But Purdue, Zach Edey's just been the entire team.
I mean, it's time for them, right? We've been waiting on this.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the best game of his career the other night. And it's funny, I remember last year people were saying he's the best player in college basketball, but he'll never play in the NBA. And now I see him shooting up NBA draft boards, and I'm thinking it's Warriors do need a center. But no, it won't happen. But Purdue is just interesting because just big shot ability for them. They just have the ability, when they need a bucket, they'll get it somehow. Obviously, Zach Edey's great. He's huge, but really good footwork, too, and that really helps him in the paint. He does have a lenient whistle. Watching his games, when he was cutting down the net, he didn't even need the ladder. That's how tall he was. I thought the ladder was about to get a foul called on it because of how close it was to Zach Edey as he went up to the rim. But, it's just interesting to them because they have a really good guard play and it gets overshadowed by their best player constantly.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I won't mistake Fletcher Lawyer, not Foster Lawyer, which is his brother. One of their shooting guards, fantastic. And then, oh god, I forget the dude's name every time. He has the goatee and he wears the one really high sock. I forget his name, but me and Alec went and watched him in Columbus last year in person, and he was just mesmerizing the way he was able to break the press constantly. And just facilitate to his guys and get to their spots. That Purdue just knows how they want to play, and they're able to get into it very consistently. So, as much as people talk about, Zach Edey's just tall, he's not good at basketball. Okay, if you're tall, you're going to be good at basketball. Those aren't two contrasting things. But, Purdue is able to play their strengths a lot. And that's, when you get to March, you have to be able to get into what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't like Purdue. I'm not a Purdue fan. I'm not necessarily like a hater. I haven't been preying on their downfall necessarily, like certain like teams in the past or anything. But I'm definitely rooting for NC State in this one. But I don't think Purdue will make it very close.
Oh, I agree with that. In saying that, let's expand to just the Final Four talk here for a moment. This has the potential to be a really boring Final Four because just both teams, Connecticut and Purdue, are double-digit favorites going into the Final Four weekend. Do you think that one of the games will be close?
I can see the UConn-Alabama game being close for about 25 minutes.
Mm.
I don't think it will be. And then Purdue-NC State, like, I think Edey versus Burns, as much as I like Burns, is not really a question. Yeah. So it really come down to how the battle of the front court, the back court, and like I just talked about with Purdue, I think they're more inept there. But I also thought Duke was better than NC State guard-wise, and they were able to handle that matchup pretty well. So I know Jared McCain scored like 30 in that, but like they were able to do what they needed to do, and so I mean I could see Purdue and NC State being a little bit closer, but I don't think it'd be close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then we get to the final. I think we both think UConn Purdue, right? Is it anything but chalk going to happen in that one?
I mean, I think UConn should champion over Purdue at this point, and I know that's the most boring take ever. I know, but it's where we're at. Like, if you are selling me on a different outcome, I genuinely believe you're just trying to be different.
Yeah,
like, just on paper,
like edgy, like different pick. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's just
because on paper, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because UConn has been a heavy favorite against every team they've played. They were double-digit favorites against Illinois, dude. That's a top 10 team in the country. And, like, if we go into this Purdue game, I think UConn's going to be a big favorite. Like, even against Purdue, a 1 seed.
It'll be fun to watch that. I'm also looking forward to how the women's tournament shakes out. I was watching, I don't know how much you watched it last night, but with that Iowa LSU game and then that UConn game. After that, like, great historic night of women's hoops last night. Like, we saw Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese all play in a span of like 4 hours back to back to back. And so, like, it was really fun to watch. And so, like, personally, I think, like, people are forgetting about South Carolina right now just because of star power on other teams, which is crazy because South Carolina has been like the best women's team in the country consistently for the past like 2 years.
They're undefeated.
Yeah, like and it's crazy. Like they're literally flying under the radar, and they're one of the best teams of all time.
But yeah, think about this: 36-0, not being top 10.
And it's insane. And so I'm there's going to be a lot of good matchups. I think I was telling you. What did I say? Iowa plays.
It's Iowa, UConn, NC State, South Carolina.
Yeah.
This is your Final Four.
So, I mean, Iowa, UConn will be cinema. And then...
South Carolina's a huge favorite in NC State.
So I think South Carolina will win that, but we're rooting on the Wolfpack. But yeah, like, that tournament is going to be just as entertaining as this one, too. So, I think it's possible, as good as South Carolina is, I still think it's possible to get a UConn double dip. But we'll see. I want to talk more about that tournament next week when we come back. We'll be able to recap kind of both of them. Okay. We're limited on filming time because there's a strong chance that this storm is about to be really bad. So we're not trying to put editing before like livelihood right now. But we'll see. We'll be back recapping both men's and women's tournaments next week. This has been The Back Page. I'm Carter Sims.
And I'm Collin Crisp.
You can find our episodes on Spotify and YouTube.